Are you looking for a life of freedom and flexibility? Do you want to have as much success with your family as you do in business? Here in the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast, we break down the barriers and bust the myths that are keeping you from living your best life at home and at work. You deserve a thriving family, rich faith, and business success. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast.
Welcome back. Today is February 21st that we are recording this. And today is a somber day. It's also a celebration day that we get to remember and honor Billy Graham, who passed away. Celebrate the fact that he is in heaven with his Lord and Savior, and look back on this life, this legacy that he has lived, and just a giant in the faith, someone who has brought the gospel to so many. And so we just honor him today. And one of the things is I've been online today and seen stories and memories about him. There's one that's come up a few times, really a gift that he left all of us. And it was in this interview with Christianity Today. And they asked him, Billy, do you have any regrets as you look back on life? Very insightfully, he says, I regret that I didn't spend more time with my family. I'm sure Ruth and the children paid a heavy price for all the times I was absent. Guys, today we want to talk about this gift that he gave us. Being raw, being authentic about this topic. This is probably going to be kind of a deeper show than normal, and we're totally okay with that, because this is one as entrepreneurial family men that we need to get right, because there's a legacy that we are leaving for our kids, for their kids. Gosh, Michael, Jamie, before we dig in here, it's just I feel the weight of and the pressure really of this topic, and to dive into this, I feel like we need to start on a different note.
Yeah, I know normally we get to be our goofy selves. This week we probably need to mute our personalities and not do anything funny at all, because this is at a wake and a life celebration. You're not supposed to do any sort of humor, right?
Jamie, please tell us a joke or something.
Man, you put me on the spot. What do you want to hear? Pastor walks into a bar or something like that?
I'm sure you can come up with something.
Oh, no.
You have a whole arsenal.
Well, Billy Graham was a Southern Baptist, and I know out of the three of us, none of us are Southern, but I live in Nashville, Music City. I moved here a couple years ago, so I'm starting to learn a little bit about the culture. You know, I'll throw in a y'all and a fixin' and some of those terms to try to be a fake Southerner. But one thing kind of cool about the South is there's all these jokes about Southerners and Christianity, because there's a lot of churches in every corner. So I'll give you one little Southern Baptist joke here. You ready? Going to do a drum roll from me, Chris? All right. So what is the difference between a Baptist and a Catholic?
What?
That a Catholic will say hello to you in the liquor store.
Oh, man.
All right. Okay. So listen, so our downloads and our reviews, we're going to get a whole bunch of bad press on this one.
Or maybe good press. Who knows?
Or maybe good. Hey.
We forgive you. Guys, today we are talking about a heavy topic, and we're going to dive back in. And I think we forget sometimes how so very crucial this role of father is. And think about yourselves. Think about your own life. How important was your father's role in your life and who you are today? Man, when you look at your kids, they have some of those same questions, some of those same longings for time with you, for relationship with you. And one of my fans is John Eldridge, and he talks a lot about the subject of fatherhood and wounds that come through your father. And he talks about kids having these core questions that can only be answered by a father. Does my father delight in me? And especially for boys, do I have what it takes? Maybe for girls, am I captivating? Am I beautiful? And so we've had these deep questions and longings that we so want validated in us, and we look for that validation in our fathers. And guess what? Our kids have those same questions, and they're looking for that validation from us. So we look at the issues of what happens when somebody doesn't have a father that's present or isn't involved in their life. I mean, think about when you see a person struggling with relationships or confidence or addiction or abuse or whatever, what's that question rolling around in most people's minds of, I wonder what his upbringing was like. I wonder what his relationship with his father was like. This is huge, guys. It's so much deeper than just, oh, did I spend enough time with my kids and make happy memories? This is core to who we are in a lot of ways, our connection to our Father. And we sit in that role as entrepreneurial family men right now. So I want you to think about you and your relationship with your father. How does that affect the way you think about fatherhood? How does it affect the way that you view your kids and the time that you spend with your kids? This is absolutely foundational. It was core to the message of Christianity, right? Jesus, the Son of God, the Father, and the depth of that relationship, and how Jesus was so validated by his Father that he could go to the cross and bear the weight of the sin of the world. This is deep stuff, guys. And it's time to really take a look at your role as a father in your own family.
Yeah, this is deep, and it makes you want to take a step back and look at that relationship with not just your earthly father, but your heavenly Father. You know, what are we doing? What's our view in tapping into the power, the affirmation, the promises that he gives us? And then looking back at our own relationship with our Father, and now as men, as dads, what are we doing? I mean, I've said this to my kids a number of times and to friends, like my most joyful role and hardest role in life right now is being a father. And sometimes I think, especially as guys in this American dream type of world we live in, it's easy to focus on the business success, the affirmations we get there, the numbers, the bottom line, the growth. And if you're not in tune with your sons and daughters and your spouse and the growth that's happening there, or maybe not happening, I mean, these are just some questions that, just as you shared, Michael, I'm thinking through, gosh, what am I doing right now? How am I being intentional with this important topic in my household? I don't know. Jamie, does that resonate? What comes to mind when you're thinking through this?
I know Michael put out a post several weeks ago in his Facebook group about being a new father and how difficult it is. And he gave a challenge to reach out to a new father and just affirm them, because it's really, really hard. I remember being a new father, just being so overwhelmed. Sometimes I find myself saying, I'm doing such a better job than I used to, that maybe I settle for above average instead of setting the bar at being great. Jim Gaffigan has that joke. You're drowning in a pool and then somebody hands you a baby. That's how it feels when you're first a dad.
Yeah, there's no good or great maybe dad books. You just kind of have to learn. You just kind of have to learn as you go, right? There's no great manual for each kid. They're all a little different. But yeah, I mean, I think that's part of this whole discussion is because of the gravity of it. And if you feel like you're off course, there's got to be massive change involved in our lives. And Jamie, just like you shared, even from kid to kid, I mean, I would say the same for myself. First few years of parenting and being a dad, I'm just trying to figure out which way is up, and maybe sometimes focusing too much on, well, what are the disciplinary actions we're going to sets the stage here for, or what's our schedule going to be like, or things like that. And boy, sometimes you're missing the mark if you're only focused on those exteriors and not the heart of those kids, even at a young age.
Absolutely, Chris. And I found myself as a young father, even wanting to prove myself as a father, because I had never done that before. I wanted to show people around me that I have what it takes. See, I can do this fatherhood thing. See, I'm doing the discipline right. My kids are so well behaved. See, look at how awesome I am when I spend time with my kids. And as soon as I find myself going down that road of trying to prove myself, really I'm looking for the thing that my kids need from me. And I got to remember that, wow, I got to stop and think about, that's right. My kids are longing for something from me. And if I get caught up in trying to prove myself, I'm going to miss something.
Yeah, we don't want to miss things.
Yeah. No, and that's to Billy Graham's quote and that point of, because he was absent so much, he knew that the heavy price that each of those kids paid. And there's plenty of stories, and of course, most of them have come full circle. But Franklin Graham talks about some of those years where he didn't feel like he had a present father, and he was at this rebellious time. And I thank God for his grace that he's brought him back. But there's a lot there.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is a lot of us entrepreneurial family men are working from home. And when we make that transition to working from home, it doesn't automatically happen that we're spending all this amazing time with our kids. We're still working, and it takes a whole lot of intentionality to really focus in on that time and make it valuable. I would even make a case that sometimes it's more difficult because you're there all day and you feel like, I'm here all day, so I'm kind of with my family, but are you really with your family when you're working from home?
I'm guilty of not being present. There's times when I feel like when I'm telling myself I'm there and I know that I'm really not. And I think the proof is in the pudding that my kids know that I'm checked out. Just because I'm there in body doesn't mean that I'm really plugged in and attentive to them or spending that one-on-one time and really making a deep connection.
Yeah, this is a key point, in that intentionality of our time together. I think sometimes, let's be honest too, guys that are in jobs can look at just the whole entrepreneurship and working from home and be like, oh, that is the life. I get to be home all the time. We're around each other. But you guys are hitting on some good points there, that there's enormous challenges of working from home and being a present father still, because just because you're present in body does not mean you're there. And I remember even before I got to this stage, and when I was in my first career, I was in politics of all places. And I was in the midst of seeing guys ruin their marriages, absentee fathers. I got just some crazy stories there. And it was coming to a point for us where we were approaching our 5-year marriage, and we talked about having kids around that time. And our marriage wasn't on the footing that needed to be on. I knew that my time and my devotion to being a husband and being a father wasn't ready. And that's when I realized I had to make some massive change. And thank God that he got a hold of me and slapped me upside the head to say, are you really living the life you want to live? And are you ready for this stage of life called fatherhood? And it wasn't until that point when I was saying, okay, Lord, I think I'm ready for this, but I need direction. And then you get to this point of, now that I'm home, what am I going to do with that extra time? How can we be intentional about our time? Do you schedule stuff? What do you guys do?
It's just tough. It's not easy because it's hard enough for us adults to schedule something, right? Like, let's be honest. We have so much going on. There's so much chaos. For us to schedule something with our kids too, it just feels like a lot. I mean, for me, starting small has been helpful. One thing that I've been doing a lot this winter is sledding with my son Gunner. He's 3 years old and he loves sledding. Except when it's time to go sledding, then he doesn't want to go. Like sometimes there's this dynamic of like you have this glorious vision of how this is going to be when you spend one-on-one time with your son, and then when it comes time to get dressed and put your boots on, he's like, "No, I don't want to go. We have to go." Like I struggle with that.
It's on my calendar.
No, we don't.
Yeah. Do you force somebody to? You force your son to go and have fun when he says he doesn't want to go in the moment? But sometimes in that moment, I'll still push through because I know once he gets out there on the hill that he'll have a good time and he'll enjoy it. And there'll be things like that along the whole trip too. I'll be on the hill and he won't want to go down the hill when we get there. But I'll have to kind of lead him into that and push him through that a little bit. So I'm not saying this thing's going to have a bow on it when you schedule it. It's going to be tough. It's going to be messy. It's not going to go the way that you envisioned it in your mind, but that's part of the reason why they need us there as their fathers, to lead them through that, to draw them into something that maybe that feels uncomfortable or scary or different or new. And they're looking to us at every step of the way to see how they should react when things don't go the way that it's planned. And we have some of the greatest memories of flying down that hill, falling down together at the bottom, rolling around, and him standing up and saying again. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wait a minute, he said he didn't want to go. So it's messy, but you got to push through and do it anyway.
Yeah, I love that idea of pushing through, Michael. The one-on-one time with each kid just needs that one-on-one time. I'm aware of it. I think it's resisted. Me and Diego were going to take this trip one-on-one, and we ended up taking a whole family trip. We went in January. Everybody was sick here in Nashville. We ended up going to Cancun for a couple weeks. Me and Diego had talked about taking a one-on-one trip. I felt a little guilt not doing it all with the family, but it's like going with Gunner. Those investments into the relationship one-on-one, you just can't have the same dynamics all together as a family when you have that just relationship one-on-one. I really want to commit to doing that with each one of my children. My dad, I remember I was studying abroad in Mexico, and he came and visited me, and we got to have that experience together. It's just something we remember. It just bonded us because we had these experiences that nobody else had except for the two of us. Michael, when Gunner is like, "No, Papa, I don't want to go," and he wants to play Legos, that's where he needs your sevenness. Just pick him up and get him to laugh and pull him out there, because he's going to remember all these situations where you guys did these one-on-one things. It's probably a good time for me. I know Diego sometimes listens to our podcast on Alexa. He says, "Alexa, play the Entrepreneurial Family Man." I probably just need to do something with him, like just slip away to do something fun with him for a couple days, or even just a long afternoon. But it's hard, right? When we got 4 kids. Chris, you got 4 kids.
It is. And there's something to this about kind of scheduling it, right? I mean, it's not rocket science, but at some times when you have a large family, you've got to just plan a little bit. This was actually an area where Alicia and I slipped last year quite a bit, and not taking each other on dates and not dating our kids very well. And so we've really made it a point this year. And unfortunately, we've been once a week, one of us will take a kid on a date. And as we look at the breakdown of the quarter, we each get 2 dates with each kid. And so we let them know, like, one of those, you can do something fun that could be paid. We'll go to the batting cages or bowling or whatever. And then one, we've got to come up with a creative idea that's free. It's just solid time. And it's the time in the car together. It's the time talking over food. It's the time just goofing out, playing together. We've really found that scheduling of those times is precious. And just like we're making love deposits when we take our wives on dates, those are the love deposits our kids need. And guess what? Especially in a larger family like this with multiple kids, they talk about those dates with each other. And they go, "Oh, I got to do this with Daddy." And there's just this banter that happens. I've overheard it in the room next door. And it's like, that is so cool. So guys, it's totally possible to do this. Just be a little more intentional, maybe.
I've thought about this too, Chris. I've seen empty nester parents want to have this relationship with their adult children. If we do that individual time with our kids, it's going to be so much easier to have that tradition, that foundation laid. When we're alone with our spouse, we can call up one of our kids and like meet up and go do something. And I've seen mentors of ours and people that we respect that are older do that with their adult children. And I think that is something that I want with my kids when they're older.
Man, that is so powerful. I'm thinking about, you guys got me thinking back into my own life of just some really sweet times with my father. I remember on Sundays, he used to take a different kid to the donut shop. We used to eat donuts every Sunday. I cannot believe that. Anyway.
That was before Lipitor.
Before Lipitor. That's right. Before open heart surgery, I had a 90% success rate. Anyway, he used to let me drive, and I was like 10 years old.
What? Your dad's a mandated reporter. Did he report himself? He's retired now.
Limitations is up by now, right? But yeah, I would sit next to him and steer the car and go around the corners and everything. And I just remember that being the sweetest time. But here's the thing, like, I think sometimes as dads, we get hung up in, oh gosh, I got to get up early, and this is a pain, and this is going to take some time, and what if I don't get back in time for this? I don't remember any of that as a kid. I'm sure like he had some of those thoughts when he's driving to the donut shop with me on Sunday. But
you were driving
that part. I remember this being the best time of my life, and so we got to remember that too. When you spend time with your kids, they are going to have the best memories in the world. They're not thinking about your frustrations. They're not thinking about the inconvenience that it is, or whatever struggles you have when you try to do something with your kids. So just remember that. I don't know why I want to share that, because I think it's important to think about.
No, that's good. One thing that, say, your dad or our dad's generation didn't have to deal with was having that smartphone with them, even on a date with a kid. And boy, I've been convicted even just an hour or two ago, taking my daughter to school, and it's at least one day a week I get to take my daughter to school midday. I really try to make that a special time where we're just got a 15-minute drive, have some conversation, had a few things on my mind with work, and I just remember reaching a few times, looking at that phone as I'm driving, by the way, and just catching myself going, oh, put it down and talk to her. Put it down and listen. So that's another thing, guys, is being, again, we're talking about being present, having that quality time. Put your cell phone down.
I guess like the worst version of that would be like a dad who lets their kid drive while texting. It's like we're cheating on our kids when we're doing quality time with them and we're texting on our phone. Imagine going out with our wives before we were married, trying to win this girl's heart, and we're like, check the score of the sports game or our stock or our Amazon sales.
Yeah.
You should probably do this. Our kids are going to remember, like, oh, Daddy took me on dates, but he was always on his phone.
Oh, present does not equal engaged.
Yes. Let's wrap this up and just ask the question, what about you? Even if it were just an extra hour a day, or maybe just an extra hour a week, what could you do differently to make more time for your kids and to invest in that such an important relationship? Maybe you're in a position, if you're in a job, could you ask your boss if you could work from home a half day a week or work from home a whole day and have a little more flexibility there? Cut out that commute time and spend it with your kids. What could you, Jamie, you've done this over the years. What could you eliminate or delegate well to be able to free up more time with your family, with your wife and kids, because they need you? And I want to close with this story. And as I was thinking about this topic today, this story from a pastor came to mind, and I just think it's a powerful one. So a father came home from work late again, tired and irritated, to find his 5-year-old son waiting for him at the door. "Daddy, may I ask you a question?" "Yeah, sure. What is it?" replied the man. "Daddy, how much money do you make an hour?" That's none of your business. What makes you ask such a thing? The man said angrily. I just want to know. Please tell me, how much do you make an hour? Pleaded the little boy. Well, if you must know, I make $30 an hour. Oh, the little boy replied, head bowed. Looking up, he said, Daddy, may I borrow $9, please? The father became furious. If the only reason you wanted to know how much money I make is just so you can borrow some to buy a toy or some other nonsense, then you march yourself straight to your room and go to bed. Think about why you're being so selfish. I work long, hard hours every day and don't have much time for childish games. The little boy quietly went to his room and shut the door. The man sat down and started to get even madder about the little boy's questioning. After an hour or so, the man had calmed down and started to think maybe he'd been a little hard on his son. Maybe there was something he really needed to buy with that $9. And he didn't really ask for money that often. So the man went upstairs to the door of the little boy's room and opened the door. Are you asleep, son? He asked. No, Daddy, I'm awake, replied the boy. Hey, I've been thinking, maybe I was too hard on you earlier. It's been a long day and I took my aggravation out on you. Here's the $9 you asked for. The little boy sat up straight, beaming. Oh, thank you, Daddy, he yelled. Then, reaching under his pillow, he pulled out some more crumpled up bills. The man, seeing that the boy already had money, started to get angry again. The little boy slowly counted out his money and then looked up at the man. Wait, why did you want more money if you already had some? The father grumbled. Because I didn't have enough, but now I do, the little boy replied. Daddy, I have $30 now. Can I buy an hour of your time?
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. For show notes, resources, and to connect with us, visit www.entrepreneurialfamilyman.com.